Talks in Qatar about renewing the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas have collapsed. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered his team to return home. Hamas, which has been designated a terrorist organization by multiple countries, has told the media it will not release any more hostages until all Palestinian prisoners held by Israel are released. Israel is stepping up airstrikes on southern Gaza, which is where it told civilians to flee to during the first phase of the war.
Relentless strikes on southern Gaza, where many people had sought safety. Hope for some here is now gone.
There's nothing left to fear. Our houses are gone. Our property is gone. Our money is gone. Sons have been martyred. Some died, and some left disabled in the hospital. What's left to cry for? And then they tell us we'll get aid. Where is it?
This 2-month war has seen entire Palestinian families wiped out. Many people have been displaced multiple times, like those in this makeshift camp near a hospital in the city of Khan Yunis. They say no place is safe, with Israeli bombs dropping everywhere. So some are ignoring Israel's calls to move further south and are staying put.
In the first shelling, they told us to evacuate to the south because it's safe. Now they tell us to go further south. This is nonsense. We're not going anywhere. We'll remain here, and they can do whatever they please.
Israel says it has struck hundreds of Hamas targets, including what it says were a command centre and military compound. But it denies claims there are no safe places to evacuate to in Gaza.
We determine safe areas in Gaza in coordination with international agencies and with our American friends. We determine safe areas to where the population knows it can evacuate. We did it in the north, and we will do it elsewhere. And this is important because we have no desire to harm the population.
There is no sign of another pause in fighting. Israel has pulled its negotiator out of the ceasefire talks. The deputy leader of Hamas said any further release of hostages would only happen as part of ending the war.
Always good to welcome military affairs analyst Frank Ledwidge, who joins us now. He's a senior lecturer in strategic studies at Portsmouth University and a former UK military intelligence officer. Frank, ceasefire talks have stalled. Israel is warning people to get out of parts of southern Gaza. Fair to assume the next ground offensive is imminent?
Yes, good morning, Michael. Certainly, and ground operations have been continuing, not least, of course, to continue to deal with the vital tunnel systems. In the north of Gaza, the divisions and brigades are engaged, I think, pretty much every day. And even during the ceasefire, there were breaches with combat. As for the pause in the negotiations, well, look, in any negotiations, be they legal or commercial, and of course, military like this, kidnapping negotiations included, you're always going to get pauses, people walking out threatening. What's interesting here is we see now the all-for-all deal that Hamas has been pushing for quite a while, and I think it's not at all appealing, shall we say, to the Israelis.
We in the media keep referring to the masses of people there, and it bears repeating. We're talking about as many as 1.5 million Palestinians who might have to move, many of them already displaced. How is that even possible, let alone keeping them relatively safe?
Well, I suspect it isn't possible. There are a number of constraints. First of all, it seems that the instructions that Israel are giving, and you can see these across the media, where you are told, well, go from this zone to that zone, or move to this village, are evidently confusing. And there's a second issue as well, which is rarely spoken of, and that's, of course, the fact that Hamas doesn't want people to move because Hamas is using these people as human shields. So from the Israeli perspective, they are evidently causing some confusion. Perhaps they're trying to do their best, I would imagine. But also, Hamas has an interest in keeping people there. And of course, how long is this going to go on for, shifting people around like pieces on a chessboard? It's not a good look, shall we say.
Frank, Israel's made their objective clear. Their aim is to eradicate Hamas, full stop. Do you think, as a military strategist, that Israel's military strategy is not going to change, regardless of how densely populated its targeted areas might be, or how much international support it might lose?
Well, Michael, Israel doesn't have a military strategy yet, and they're being reminded of this fairly constantly by US politicians, senior US politicians, not least, of course, Mr. Blinken himself. I've no doubt at all that President Biden is on the phone to Netanyahu quite regularly. And Vice President Harris yesterday made it very clear to the Israelis, we will not permit population transfers, ethnic cleansing, quite rightly so. So there is no strategy. Now, President Macron today said something very interesting. I think he's right about this. He said, look, militarily speaking, if your aim is to kill Hamas physically, that's going to take 10 years. This was similar to the aim, of course, or the aim outlined in 1982, when Israel invaded Lebanon to destroy the Palestinians in a similar way. And that started a 20-year conflict. President Macron's raising an issue I think that's very important here. Israel needs not only itself to understand, but most importantly needs its allies, friends, and indeed adversaries to understand what is not the end game here, but what track are you trying to get on? What is your political objective, realistic political objective here? How do you want this to look at the end of the military operation? They can reduce Hamas to a rump, no doubt about that. Of course, it seems that they're electing to do so using, or rather with extensive civilian casualties. But what after that? And finally, of course, constantly worth mentioning, you can't kill an idea. And that idea tends to grow when many, many people are killed who shouldn't be killed.
That is a military analyst, Frank Ledwidge. As always, many thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Michael.